Good morning. So I've been hearing from you, as well as many other people, questions about meditation. There are really two main types of meditation, which I will call the solar and the lunar. The solar is more just becoming one with the absolute, like what they would call Advaita in India, where you lose all awareness of self. Now, this doesn't mean total emptiness, like the word shunyata is thrown around a lot in Buddhist circles, meaning emptiness, but it doesn't really mean absence of anything. It's the presence of pure consciousness, but it's the absence of ego or awareness of self as an individual person. So this is the consciousness where you become one with all that is, or it's even beyond God consciousness, that you're not conscious of yourself as a God being or as a master. There is no individuality whatsoever. You are one with all. You are pure consciousness, but not even aware of that as an individual being. And that is a state of total knowing and bliss, what they call Satchitananda, consciousness, existence, bliss. As beautiful as that is, it is not mastery. A master is someone who has experienced that or can experience that at will, but can also be in relative reality, can exist in the world of duality as an individual and be in relationship with other individuals. Now, a lot of Advaita people say there are no others. Well, that others are an illusion, but even that is an illusion. That illusion is an illusion. Tell your wife there are no others, that she doesn't exist, or tell your children that it doesn't work. You don't want an Advaita taxi driver who says, I don't recognize opposite sides of the road. There is no left and right. That's an illusion. Say, I think I'll get a different taxi. I want someone that knows left from right. So there is a place for duality. And the master, knowing the oneness, can still enter into and exist in duality and work with it and be a teacher. So this brings in what I call the lunar consciousness, which is looking at the shadows cast by the light. The solar consciousness is the oneness, it is the sun, but there are objects that cast shadows. And these are the shadows that bother us in daily life. You can call them karma, or hang-ups, or neuroses, whatever you want to call them, they're very real. And a master needs to be able to look at those things within themselves and go beyond them, to dissolve the shadows, or at least to not be influenced by them. So that's where the lunar meditation comes in, which is observing the shadows, but not identifying with them. Now, this is the beauty of the consciousness that you can attain through Vipassana, that can be the combination of the solar and lunar, if you do it right. So that would be through observing the breath, you can slow the mind down. Just feeling the rise and fall of the chest. That creates a focus. And if a thought comes up, you just put a label on it, thinking. Or you can be aware that there's a pain in some part of the body or some tension, and you tell that part to relax, but you come back to the breath. And gradually the thoughts come slower and slower. And you become aware that someone or some consciousness is observing the thoughts that is not identified with the thoughts. So there is a thought process separate from the thoughts themselves. So then you can ask, who is observing that? Or more like, what is observing? And as you practice that self-inquiry, this is not self-inquiry into the ego. This is inquiry into who is the real self. And you realize then that your mind does not exist in your brain. Your brain is just the local monitor for your mind. But that consciousness, that internet exists cosmically, that you are one with cosmic consciousness. And these thoughts are just little blips on the screen. And if you want to put your attention on them, you gradually identify with them and think that that's you. Actually, everybody is enlightened already. Everybody is a Buddha or an avatar. Everyone is an embodiment of God, divine consciousness. But people choose to look at the ideas or the phenomena outside themselves, and they identify with them. And they think that's them. So the key is to turn your attention back inward to that self that is not identified with thoughts, feelings, emotions, and sensations. And that becomes very blissful when you do it right. You realize you are an unlimited being. You will never die. You are eternal. And you are one with all that is. But if some idea of limitation comes up on your screen, you can look at it and say, what does that have to teach me? Is there something I can learn from that? And then you can see other people's thoughts, ideas, limitations also in the same way, that it is not really them. It's just part of the lesson they're working on learning. And what part can I play in that lesson? So I think it's like, imagine that you're in a boat and you're going across a beautiful lake in the tropics, and there are beautiful fish in the lake and beautiful plants underwater. And you want to reach out and look at them closer, and you lean over the edge of the boat. Well, you can do that maybe if you hold on to the boat. Otherwise, you're going to fall in and become completely enmeshed in all the life that's in the water, entangled up in all the webs. But if you hold on to the boat, you can still look at what's in the water, maybe even the lotus blossoms on the surface of the water, and not fall in. So I liken this to being aware of the sun within yourself, while you're also aware of the shadows that the sunlight is casting around you. So I would say that meditation leading to mastery should incorporate both aspects: the solar consciousness, where you feel the sun in the center of your chest. And in fact, that is where the sacred flame is anchored, the Jyoti. It's in India, they call it the Jyoti, the sacred flame, that it's a real focus of light that is focused from your higher self, the I am presence, or what in Tibetan Buddhism is called the Dharmakaya, the body of Dharma, your permanent self, that sends the tube of light down through the top of your head, and it's anchored in your body near the thymus gland, or actually under the sternum, and slightly to the right of it. And that's what keeps you alive. That light is what's telling your heart to beat. It's sending out signals. And that's what makes you breathe. And that's the source of your life right there. And that's why Saint Germain says in Unveiled Mysteries, imagine a great light, a sun in the center of your chest. And you can close your eyes if you want. And just imagine a sun there. And your body is transparent, like it's made of crystal. And that sun is filling your body with light. And the light is shining out into the room, through the walls, into your town, into your country, throughout the entire earth. In fact, the earth itself is becoming a sun. And the center of that sun is in the center of your chest. You just feel that and feel the love that is there. The love is one with the light. And you can say, I am divine love radiating out to the world. And know that that love is real. It's not just an idea. It's a substance going out on those rays of etheric light. I am the light of the world. And if a thought should come up, a thought of sorrow or limitation, or you're aware of suffering someplace on the earth, and you look at that thought, and you look at that feeling that you have, and offer it to the light. Even our own physical sun shines on the bad as well as the good. Eventually, this earth will pass away. Our solar system will pass away and merge into a higher frequency. Like you can say it will go into a black hole, but It is not really black, it is simply entrance into a higher frequency. And everything that we call bad will cease to exist. But in the meantime, we have this drama we call life. So it's important to identify with the light and the love and the joy as much as possible, rather than get sucked into the illusion of the shadows. So in a sense, we are all psychologists working on ourselves, but not to have pity or feel sorry for ourselves or become immersed in our problems or our hang-ups. As long as you keep your grasp and your focus on that light, you can shine that light on the problems, on the hang-ups, and they will dissolve. So your own light of wisdom will reveal to you why you have those problems, that they are not there by accident. They're a part of a process you agreed to go through. So you can say, I am being shown where that feeling comes from and what it is I can learn from it, and not to blame others for my feelings. In fact, other people may be sent into your life simply to trigger those thoughts and feelings. Because the masters, your higher self, knows you have illusions, that you have weaknesses somewhere, and you need someone to bring those to your attention. So you can get to the point where someone can write you a nasty email or walk up to you on the street and tell you you're an idiot or you're wrong about your political beliefs, and it won't affect you. Because you're aware of that light within. So it takes both the solar and the lunar. I think of the lunar as more the psychology aspect, looking at creation and seeing the beauty as well as the ugliness, that you are mother of it all. It all has its place. And learning compassion is a part of that. If we just hang out in the bliss of oneness, we don't learn compassion. So one of our reasons for being here and for suffering and seeing the suffering of others is to develop the compassion within ourselves, to realize what we call the other is really a part of ourselves. Now, there is what I would call a third way of meditation, which is called Tantra. Tantra means the unbroken web of consciousness. So in Tantra, you see the other, again, as an aspect of yourself, that it's really all taking place within you, and it is all divinity. There is no God and not God. So I would say that is the union of the sun and the moon. So you can be enlightened, yet have your eyes open and see that there are others, but the others are also you. So if there's something bothering you about another, you see it as your problem, not their problem. And it is all divinity revealing itself to you. The sense of separation can be overcome by that meditation on the inner light. You know, where you merge with the one, or you merge with the presence, with the all, you know. So that's why I see psychology is a part of it, that not the kind of psychology where you just go pour out your problems to an analyst and they listen. That's what they call talk therapy, that it's therapeutic to talk to someone about your problems and have someone listen. But the kind of therapy where you ask, where is that coming from? And what can I learn from it? And what is a better way I could deal with that situation? You can say, I've had this situation come up over and over in my life. I want to be shown why, where that problem comes from. Why did I create that loop that keeps cycling around? And what can I learn from it? And when that comes up again, how can I deal with it differently? Like, imagine you're a character in a movie and you're on take 6, and the director says, you didn't get it quite right this time. See if you can do it better next time. Okay, next time I will do it this way. When I meet that kind of a person again, or I meet that person that made me feel that way last time, I will deal with it differently. One of the definitions of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. So you do the same thing, you're going to get the same results. So how can I deal with that situation differently next time? And you can rehearse it in your mind. This person is going to say that, it'll make me feel this way, but instead of adding fuel to the fire, I can maybe even not comment at all, or not react, or say something different next time. So if something is hurting you, that is your problem, not the other person's problem. Of course, you can tell them, I'd like you to take your foot off my foot. You're standing on my foot. I would appreciate it. But if there's an emotional reaction to it, that is your problem, and not to take it that they deliberately stepped on your foot, They were just clumsy. They didn't know what they were doing or see what they were doing. And I think nowadays on the spiritual path, there seems to be a lot of confusion about it, On the one hand, there are people, just go to there are more social gatherings than spiritual, and people sit around and maybe chant a little bit and then share their emotions or their feelings and stuff, which can be very healing, but it's not going to take people to God realization or lead to mastery. So I really feel there needs to be maybe more focus on meditating on the inner light, And this is not just, a lot of the Advaita teachings are given in a way it's kind of a word game, just to say, well, there is no other. To say that is one thing, but to realize it is something else, that only comes through deep meditation. I mean, it can come spontaneously. On the other hand, someone could meditate 80 years and not realize it. That's the beauty, is that you can have that experience at any time. Yeah. Well, you can't just say, I'm going to see everybody as God and treat everybody as God and then let people do what they want. It's having the consciousness that everybody is God. That's something different. You know, this is my whole generation. They were called love and lighters. There was no boundaries, no, just do your own thing, whatever makes you happy. Everything is God, everything, there's no right and wrong. Just do your own thing and everything. That did not lead to happiness. It led to misery. So it's going inward and really experiencing the oneness of everything, which takes hard work. Nowadays, people want to take a weekend workshop and say, I took a workshop in oneness, and now I'm certified, and I can even teach it to others. It's not that simple. You can't be faked, So, Saint Germain gave that beautiful meditation in the first chapter of Unveiled Mysteries, meditating on the inner light. But very few of those people actually practiced it. It's much more exciting to sit in an auditorium and hear discourses, one discourse after another, which, even though the radiation was beautiful, people still have to go home, learn to generate that radiation themselves, which only comes through making that inner connection, and meditating on it day after day. In talking about these kinds of meditations, it has nothing to do with what your life looks like from the outside, whether you're a monk in a cave or you're a householder with a family. Traditionally, if you're going to practice austerities or intense meditation, you would go someplace where you could be alone, like a cave in Tibet, something like that. But few of us can do that. You could go to an ashram where you could be alone, or just you can have a room wherever you are and be alone. But sometimes people, if they're alone too much and they're not ready for it, they can get into self-delusion. And on the other hand, if their lives are too busy, they don't have the time for the inner focus, or there are too many people depending on them, thinking about them, that they don't have this sort of psychic space, to do these practices. So each person has to find the balance. I mean, obviously, if you're a mother with 4 children, you can't say, I'm going to be a yogi and, practice austerities, but you still might get 5 minutes in the morning when you wake up and another 5 minutes in the afternoon when the kids are taking a nap to do it. But again, this is where Tantra comes in, where you can say, being a mother is my destiny. My children are God. Each of my children is an avatar that is here to help humanity. And I am the Divine Mother, or I am the Divine Father. May everything I do for these children benefit all children everywhere. May all children have the same care that I am giving my children. Then being a parent is a part of the spiritual path, very definitely. And you could experience the oneness of the bliss or the cosmic consciousness doing that, possibly. I mean, one of my first experiences of that oneness, the cosmic oneness, was while shoveling manure, I just went into it. There was no me at all, no sense of self, no individual being. There was just Sat Chitananda, absolute bliss, light, the sound of the cosmic Om radiating through all space. I don't know how long that lasted, but when I came back, as I came back into individuality, then I remembered what I had experienced. And that was like a divine gift. I can't say you should go out and do the same thing. It could happen while you're washing dishes or changing diapers or scrubbing the floor. Any kind of repetitive action, or as Ram Dass said, a woman told him she achieved that consciousness by crocheting. But there has generally to be some kind of focus for the mind, because the mind just tends to revolve around its own illusions, its own problems. The shadows will keep relating to other shadows, and there's no escape. You have to turn on the light to make the shadows disappear. So that's the fastest way to get rid of the shadows, is to turn on the light, which is meditate on the light within you and know that is the real you. And if a shadow keeps coming up, then you can ask, what is that shadow? Why is it there? What am I to learn from it? Yes, that's a good question. I had an email from someone said, I've been following your teachings about meditating on the light for the past year, and I still haven't seen the light. Well, it starts out as a feeling that you feel a feeling in the center of your chest. So you meditate on that feeling. So if I say, who are you? You feel instinctively, who, me? Why do you point here and you don't point to your shoulder or to your head? Because your sense of self doesn't reside there, it resides here. That's where the God flame is anchored. You may not see it. In fact, most people don't see it. So I say the light, but it's actually, you first experience it as a feeling. It could be the feeling of love. Think of someone or something you love. You feel it here. There's something uplifting there. Like if you see a beautiful flower, you go, ah, and you feel it here. In fact, people even go, oh, it's so beautiful. So meditate on that feeling. And that feeling comes from the light. So if you don't actually need to actually see like someone turned on a light there, you meditate on the feeling. Yeah, it's a good question. There are times when people are going through such a hard time that they don't feel that, they don't see it, they don't feel it. They just feel anxiety, fear, depression, things like that. That's why it's important during the times when you're not feeling that to build up your practice, So there's kind of like what I call a reservoir of consciousness that you can tap into. A great example is Eckhart Tolle, who was chronically depressed, even suicidal, from what I understand, but he was definitely chronically depressed. And one night before he went to bed, he was observing how depressed he was. And he realized that there was somebody observing him being depressed. And that I wonder what would happen if I identified with the observer instead of the Eckhart who's depressed. And immediately he felt better, and he woke up in the morning still feeling better, that he was still identified with the observer rather than with the ego that was depressed, So that's where this self-inquiry comes in. Who is depressed? Who is observing being depressed? Who is observing the being that is feeling pain for the world situation? The entire earth and all people on it are living in the mind of God. So how is God viewing the whole situation? I mean, God could eliminate everything with a thought and start over, but God is allowing it to continue because God is learning something from it. So we are God learning. So you can say, what is it that I am learning? I can help God by learning what the situation has in it for me. Well, that's a good question. You asked about my own personal practice, what I do if something bothers me. And it's an illusion to think that because someone has advanced spiritually or they've experienced cosmic consciousness, that they don't have bad feelings or bad thoughts now and then. Even some of the great masters that I met occasionally would get angry or have a feeling of loneliness or something like that, or even the desire to leave the body, just getting fed up with humanity. So I go inward and observe the light, and that can be, sometimes if you're distraught, even the concept of meditation seems too far away. That's the beauty of the mala, The mala, it's a simple way to meditate. You see, even the Dalai Lama or very great lamas, when they're being interviewed, you see them still saying their mantra with their mala, because it's a way to keep one part of their consciousness focused on God. It's just like when you're leaning over the boat, you're holding on with one hand to the boat while you're leaning over looking at things in the water. So this is holding on to reality, doing a mantra with each bead. So if things are really chaotic and it's hard to meditate, just take a mala and recite a particular mantra and focus on that. And gradually that slows the mind down. And you realize there's a string, all these beads are on a string. That string is universal consciousness. So that string goes through you, and it links you together with all the other beads. All the other beads are the people in the universe, the beings in the universe. The God consciousness joins us all together. So you turn your attention inward and you become one with the string of consciousness, So there are many ways, people even just to go for a walk and saying, I pray that when I go for this walk, I will be freed of my problems, I am the presence of God walking. Instead of focusing on the breath, you focus on your feet. The earth is Mother Earth, conscious being. Thank you, Mother Earth, for creating me, allowing me to be here, and I honor you with every step. Something that can be simple like that, or even to scrub the floor. I'm scrubbing the floor for God. It is God's floor. I am God scrubbing the floor. But generally, I can sit down and turn my attention inward and feel the presence within myself and just feel I am the presence of God. And then I feel the response there. and put my attention on that. You know? And also to realize whatever my particular problems are, there are way bigger problems other people are having out there. So I make an offering by clearing my problem, may I clear the problems of others. Like if I am depressed or sad or lonely, by turning on the light within myself, may it illuminate all others. And then it's a great service that expands your own meditation, you know. So I think I would like peace in my neighborhood. I would like not to hear all the barking dogs and the lawnmowers, the leaf blowers and things like that, the garbage trucks. And so I say, I am bringing peace to my neighborhood, peace and quiet. But then I think, wait a minute, there's way worse noises. There's parts of the world where there are bombs going off. May the peace that I create in my neighborhood expand to the entire earth and bring peace to the hearts of humanity. Then it's not just me, my neighborhood, my peace, my well-being. It's meditation to benefit everyone. You know, so that helps my own meditation to think I can make a difference in the world. You know. I hope that answers your question a little bit. Yeah. God hears your every thought and feeling. So don't hesitate to ask God for help. I've heard many stories from people that cried out in desperation, "Dear God, please help me." And I know one person heard back, "I am." So in answer to your question, I would say it's important to have discipline, not to just say, I will meditate when it feels good, like when it's a beautiful day and I'm in a good mood and I'm going to see friends later on and life is beautiful, then I will meditate and that will be the cherry on my ice cream, you know. So I would say it's important to set a routine, have a definite practice at a certain time every day, or at least according to a schedule. And this in itself is good for spiritual practice, to stick to to make a commitment. That's the big word. You know, when you get a job and you sign a contract to work for someone, that's making a commitment. This is making a commitment to God, that I vow to follow this plan every day, even when I'm not feeling well. Or, I mean, obviously, if somebody's sick, they may not be able to do it. But when a person is not feeling well emotionally, that's the exact time you should do it. So to say, you know, every morning at 7 o'clock, from 7 to 7:45, I'm going to sit on the cushion. You can't necessarily vow to go into bliss or oneness or whatever, but you can vow to sit on the cushion. So anytime you can even do that, even if your mind wanders, it is good. So really, there's no bad meditation in a sense if you simply sit and work on it, you know? And that builds up self-esteem, you know, to say, every morning for the past month, I have kept my commitment to sit for 45 minutes without getting up, without making tea, without looking out the window, without checking for texts, without having a snack. You know, I have sat there with my eyes closed or staring at the spot on the floor and practiced self-inquiry. You know, that builds up self-esteem. Even if there's been no blinding light or dazzling realization, you would be surprised what actually happens when you're doing that, you know. Well, for some people, meditation is service. That people are not in a situation where they can practice formal sitting meditation. Then you can make your work the meditation, like could be sweeping the road in front of your house in India, you know, or the Dalai Lama said his mother used to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and walk with 2 jugs to the spring and get enough water to come back and make breakfast for her family. And during that time when she was walking, she was praying or doing a mantra, you know. But that was her spiritual practice. So you can say that was karma yoga. And who knows what she was developing, but the Dalai Lama said he learned compassion from his mother. And our mother is our first teacher, really. So it's making that commitment. Even Arjuna facing battle in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, who is manifestation of God, comes to him and says, your duty is to fight. I know you don't want to hurt anybody, but this is your duty. So in a sense, I'm asking you to make a commitment to fulfill your duty. You made an agreement to be an embodiment at this time, to be in this situation as a soldier. You really have no other choice. So I'm asking you to dedicate your action to God, you know. And this also happened to me. I was in a cabin studying with a Tibetan Lama, and I thought, this is it. The rest of my life, I'm going to be a monk in seclusion in the forest, starting my day with 2 hours of intense Vajrayana Buddhist practice. Then I'm going to be studying with this Lama during the day and then doing my own practice in the afternoon. And then we'll have a meeting of the whole group studying with this Lama at night. And this is my life from now on. And then I got a phone call. Your ex-wife is sick. You need to come home and take care of your 9-year-old daughter. Plus my mother had shown up. It was the last year of her life. I needed to take care of her. So I went from being a monk practicing Tibetan Buddhism suddenly to being a householder taking care of 2 people. And at first I thought, there must be some mistake. This isn't spiritual. I was doing this intense spiritual practice. And now I still found time to meditate early in the morning. But most of the day was taken up cooking meals. They didn't eat the same food, which was not the food I cooked. I was cooking 3 meals, at least twice a day. Housekeeping, taking my daughter to school, picking her up, all kind of other things, shoveling snow out of the driveway, buying groceries, just a regular householder. But I dedicated all to God. I had to keep reminding myself, I am the presence of God doing this, and I'm doing it for God. But even then, I still found time to do formal meditation, you know. It's like, even the 45 minutes in the morning, it just meant I would get up a little bit earlier. But it's very important to make a commitment and to hold to it. If you keep breaking commitments, it lowers self-esteem. So you only make a commitment that you intend to keep, that seems reasonable, you know, that seems you can hold to it, and then to hold to really do it, you know. I believe the word commit comes from the roots that mean to be with. So to be with God is to commit.